Welcome to your Artsy Girl podcast. I am your host, Christina Carrere. This is a podcast about art, poetry, writing, and anything about creativity. Sit back, relax, and get your dose of brain food to get your creative juices flowing. Welcome to episode 46. Today's featured guest is poet Courtney LeBlanc. She is the author of Beautiful and Full of Monsters through Vegetarian Alcoholic Press, March 2020, The Violence Within through Flutter Press, 2018, and All in the Family through Bottlecap Press, 2016, and a Pushcart Prize nominee. She has an MFA from Queen's University of Charlotte. She loves nail polish, wine, and tattoos, and she also blogs at WordPerv.com. Everyone, please welcome my next featured guest, Courtney LeBlanc. Hi, Courtney. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you on your Artsy Girl podcast. You reached out to me because you saw a post searching for to feature women writers and poets, and I'm glad you responded. But before we talk about your work, tell us a little more about you. So first off, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was actually born in North Dakota. My family has a 1,400 acre farm, which sounds big, but in the Midwest, that's actually just a small family farm.
Wow.
So I spent the first 20 years of my life in North Dakota and then came out to the East Coast for college and never left. So now I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and it truly is where I feel like I was meant to be.
Really? Why that?
North Dakota is very desolate and very, I want to say small, but that's not quite the right word because it is truly a place of wide open spaces. Mm-hmm. But it just never felt like who I was, and I didn't identify with it. But when I moved to the East Coast, and particularly when I moved to the DC area, I really just felt like I was surrounded by the people and things that were important to me, and I could make a home here and find the things I loved. And I've done that. I've been in DC for over 11 years now, and on the East Coast for over 20 years. So it truly has become my home.
I've interviewed a couple of poets that actually live in DC. Do you know Jose Padua and Heather Davis?
I don't.
Okay. Well, I interviewed them. They're a poet couple and they live in DC area. So, they've lived there for a while. Have you connected with some folks in the literary field there?
Absolutely. There's a couple of really great there's a really great reading series that's called Readings on the Pike. That's once a month here in Arlington, Virginia. And then there's a really great poetry nonprofit called Split This Rock in DC. And they do free writing workshops. They do a poetry festival every other year. It's just a phenomenal organization. So there is a ton of creative and literary organizations here, and I'm fortunate to be able to tap into those whenever I want.
Are you familiar with Reggie Quebec by chance?
Oh, absolutely. I know him.
Oh my God.
He's
now,
amazing.
There's the connection. I met him once, like many years ago. We had a Filipino-American seminar out there at the University of Connecticut, and I was invited to be on a panel, and that's when I met him. At that time, he was doing the HBO poetry series. I forget what his name, but yeah, he's excellent. He's so
amazing, and he is such a big personality. He pulls everyone around him into his orbit. I love him.
Oh, I got to go check him out. And one of my best friends actually lives there. I was stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland, when I was in the Army. So I'm familiar with the DC area. It's been many years, but I've been there. I've spent a little time there. Do you create in other genres or art forms besides poetry?
So I like to say I'm 99% poet, which is true. But recently I've started dabbling in creative nonfiction, which is both terrifying and exhilarating.
Right.
when I first started writing creative nonfiction, the first night I wrote something like 3,000 words, which for a poet is, I mean, that's more than a book.
Yes.
I'd never.
You said 300,000 or 3,000?
3,000.
Okay.
3,000. But it was a lot, and so I'm still playing with that a little bit. I don't exactly know what that's going to become. It might just be something I write and never do anything with, but it's been fun to play with because it's so different from writing poetry for me. But mostly and mainly just a poet.
How did you get into poetry, though?
So like many, angsty teenage girls, I wrote really bad emo poetry when I was young. And then I kind of got away from it in my 20s. I was, focused on school and my career and things like that, and went through a really big life change at the end of my 20s. I got divorced. I moved to the DC area. I got a new job. I moved into a new house. So then I started writing poetry again. And a couple years later, I started thinking about the idea of going and getting an MFA, and that idea didn't go away. And so in my late 30s, I went and got an MFA in poetry. I actually graduated last January, the same week I turned 40. So it was a huge week for me.
Wow, congrats.
And it was truly wonderful because it gave me, it was a low residency program, so I was still able to work and have my life. And
where did you go?
Things. I went to Queen's University of Charlotte. It is a phenomenal
I
program.
know a couple of people from there.
Yeah, I got to work with Kathy Smith Bowers and Ada Limon, and just these really wonderful, wonderful poets.
I had an instructor from there who graduated there, Tracy Crow.
Oh, I don't know her.
Yep. She does a lot of military memoir because she was in the Marines. Yeah.
It's a wonderful program, and it really helped me find my community of writers. And I'm fortunate that a couple of my closest friends from that program live within driving distance of DC. So we get together monthly to just talk about writing and what we're doing and, support each other. And we famously give each other what we call motherfucking pep talks, because sometimes you just need somebody to lift you up when you're having a bad day.
What was that called?
Motherfucking pep talks. I hope I'm allowed to curse.
Oh, you can.
Okay.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
There's no other word for it, right? You need another woman to lift you up, and these two women, Sita and Whitney, they do that. They're, they hold me when I need it, and I hold them when they need it. So, and I met them through the school, so it's been wonderful. It was really a great decision to do it.
Well, I read some of your poems from I believe your new collection, right?
Yes.
And the thing that jumped out at me first was that I was like, wow, this is similar to kind of like my writing, kind of like the writing style and the theme I seem to focus on, which is being in a difficult relationship.
It definitely provides a lot of fodder for writing, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It is something I can't seem to stop doing. Your collection is, what's the title of it?
It's titled Beautiful and Full of Monsters.
Okay, and can you tell us a little more about it?
Sure. So the title actually comes from another book, a book of fiction by Laini Taylor. There's the quote where someone asks them to tell them a story, and she says, "Make it beautiful and full of monsters." And he replies, "Beautiful and full of monsters," and she says, "All the best stories are." Mm-hmm. And I love that quote because, particularly when I think you're talking about a relationship, there is so much beauty and so much horror in relationship, or there can be. And there certainly has been in, some of my past relationships. There's been a lot of pain and a lot of sorrow and a lot of grief. And I also think we carry a lot of that inside of ourselves. And so I thought that it was just a perfect fitting. And the book is actually constructed of 3 parts, but it's told, the first section is monsters, the second section is full, and the last section is beautiful. So it's told from
I like that. Wow.
The point of like the bad stuff, and then it's getting okay, but it's still rough. And then the end where you finally realize, I'm going to be okay. And hopefully the book ends with a little bit of hope. I hope it's not too heavy. That was my goal with the structure of it.
I like that structure. So do you happen to have a couple of poems from that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. I thought I would read one poem from each section, so it gives your listeners maybe a little bit of a taste of what they can expect from the whole collection.
Okay.
So the first one I'll read is from the first section, Monsters, and it's called, the title is End of a Relationship, and it borrows, the first line is from a Frank Bidart poem, End of a Friendship. Mm-hmm. End of a relationship. Yesterday, which more or less lasted 7 years, we sat across from one another, coffee cups between us as the first line of defense. We chose a public place to conduct the final severing, the handing over of scattered objects after departure. 8 months ago, you left, your suitcase sitting patiently by the door, your ring, that pale circle of silver, dropped into the jar of sea glass I kept by the front door. 4 weeks later, the locks changed, the restraining order served. I handed over a paper bag stuffed full of you. My naked hands shook when I lifted the coffee to my lips. You pretended not to notice. You'd perfected not noticing. For once, I appreciated it. 2 days later, I walked into that same coffee shop and right into your girlfriend. She startled before shuffling quickly past. I ordered a coffee, large instead of my usual small. My hands didn't shake. And the second poem I will read is titled Self-Portrait With and Without, and this one is from the second section, Full. Self-portrait with and without. With soy milk, with a latte drunk each morning in the dark kitchen, without the lights on because you slept on the couch again and I don't want to wake you. With dinner with friends, everything fine, without conversation during the car ride back. With negotiations as to who walks the dog when we get home. With you in front of the computer when I go to bed, without the weight of you beside me. Without my rings on when I sleep because my fingers swell. With them on the next day, newly cleaned and brilliant. With the sun prisming off the diamonds as I drive to work. With me spinning them around as I fly, my fingers puffy by the time I land. Without them on when I shower away the day's grime. With my hands bare as I open the door and let him in. With my hands on him, without a word said. And the last poem I will read for you. It's from the last section, beautiful, and it's titled Legend. You lie sleeping beside me, arm heavy across my body, breathing steady. A Japanese legend says if you can't sleep, it's because you're awake in someone else's dream. I wonder if it's your dream that holds me captive, if we're together, free and happy in a way we don't exist in the waking world. I count backwards, ease into sleep, and dream of an endless hallway with dozens of doors, each an opportunity, but none contain you.
Yeah, those are the ones I read, actually.
Excellent.
Yes, very powerful. Very powerful. So what is next? Do you have any other projects brewing?
I do. So the book, Beautiful and Full of Monsters, will be published in March. So over the next few weeks, actually, I'm going to start working on scheduling readings. Yes. Through this spring, they're most likely just going to be local stuff. And then in the summer, probably
Come
late
to Tampa.
Maybe.
Okay.
I do know that late summer, early fall, I'm planning a Midwest book tour.
Okay.
My sister lives in Minneapolis, so I'm going to start there as a base, and we're going to do a mini road trip and
cool.
some readings along the way. So that's my focus for the next few weeks, is getting some of that scheduled. And then I have a second manuscript of poetry that I'm currently shopping for a publisher. It's submitted in with several places right now, so I'm waiting to hear back. And then just continuing to write and get my poetry out there and support other poets as best I can. So it's pretty much my goals for the near-term future, at least.
That's awesome. I never got a chance to do that in the business of promoting poetry. Is it something that you schedule yourself, or does your editor or publisher help you do that?
So my book is coming out with an independent publisher, which is the way a lot of us get our books published. Right. So unfortunately, they do not have a budget for a book tour. So this one is going to be self-funded. Part of it is I have some friends along the way in good cities that I can do readings and I can stay with them. Yes. So that's how I'm doing this one. I mean, the goal, obviously, one day is to have a publisher pay for it all and schedule it all. Right. But for right now, I mean, part of being a poet is learning how to hustle. And
I think that's we're all in the same boat.
Yes. Yeah, you really, and everybody hates self-promotion, but the reality of it is nobody's going to sell your stuff better than you can sell it. Yeah. And so I'm grateful that I have, a great community I can tap into, but I'm always looking for, venues and readings and bookshops and, places that want to have
and podcasts.
Absolutely. Particularly, there are a lot of great writers out there that don't have big name publishers behind them. And so it's harder for people to find them. And, so any way we can get that information out there, I think is good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also for those who are just starting out, getting published and publishing full-length collections, this is something that I've learned and I didn't realize. When you are with a publisher, make sure that they have a good distribution. Yeah. And that meaning either get on the small press distribution network there.
Yep. And I also think, a lot of, social media gets a bad rap lately. And I don't think it's not, there's no reason for it. But I also think that honestly, it's probably the best way to get the word out and to connect with other writers. Because, it's particularly people who don't live in a metropolitan area.
No doubt. That's where that's where I do most of my network, Yeah. That's how I do. That's how I find people. That's how they find me. And you won't believe, okay, so how long has Facebook been around now?
20 years? Has it been that long?
Has it been that long?
I think so.
No, it can't be. But it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's definitely over 10. I think it's...
Right. And so I've had writer friends that's, been connected for a very long time. And I've actually seen them evolve and grow. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. It can be a beautiful thing if it's used to like network and promote other people's work, promote your work, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's used to lift up, not to tamper with elections. Did I say that? Did I throw that in there?
You did. Go, Courtney. Oh, my goodness. What a crazy world we live in right now.
It's particularly hard living in DC.
I was going to say, you're in the heart of it all.
There are definitely days and weeks and sometimes months where my social media feeds are nothing but puppies and poetry because I just can't. For my own mental health, I have to take a break. That doesn't mean stopping the fight, and it doesn't mean, paying attention to the things that are important to you. But I do think that sometimes taking a step back from the barrage of negative information is necessary sometimes. So it can be difficult being here all the time.
I know. You're right. And I struggle with that also. I mean, trying to turn off the news and try to turn it off because things just happen so fast that you're like, what happened just 5 minutes ago?
Yes, it truly is. And, 24/7 is a real thing that, yeah, it never goes away, unfortunately.
So where can people find out more about you and your work?
They can go to my website. It's just CourtneyLeBlanc.com. They can go to my blog, which is WordPerv.com. And there they can find links to all my stuff on social media, all my poems, a link to where they can pre-order my book. And just a little plug. It's my publisher is Vegetarian Alcoholic Press. So if you go to their website, yeah, it's really great. And they've been a dream to work with. So their website is vegetarianalcoholicpress.com, and my book is on sale through the end of this month.
Yay!
It's on sale for $11, which is ridiculously cheap for a full collection. So if you purchase it by the end of December, you get the sale price, and you save $5. And I don't know about you, but $5 buys me a cup of coffee. So I'll take that $5
or
get a book of poetry.
Put it towards other people's work. I know I try to support other people. It's another thing. My publisher was like, poetry is a hard sell. Yeah, it is. It is a hard sell.
It shouldn't be. I mean, this year alone, I've read, I think I'm up to 62 books of poetry.
I saw that. I was like, wow, you read a lot.
I'm a voracious reader, but I think it's really important to support, your fellow writers. And so as often as possible, I buy it directly from the poet. If I can't, I buy it directly from the independent publisher. And then I do independent bookshops. And then I do Amazon, because I want that money to go back to the artist as much as possible.
That's
awesome.
And
there is nothing better for me than curling up with a book of poetry and a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and just reading for a couple hours. It's part of my zen, I think.
So it's hard for me to say who my influences are, but I can name a few. Who were your earlier influences?
There are a lot, but some poets that I truly, truly love. Megan Falley, Jean Amberley, and then Ada Limon, and I was so fortunate to get to work with her. Her writing is just beautiful. And through when I was in school, I got to read a whole bunch of stuff that I might not have stumbled on otherwise. And then I got to meet a bunch of those people. I met Ross Gay. He is one of the kindest, most genuine, happy people I've ever met. Aww. It's insane. And his writing is beautiful and so necessary, particularly in the world we live in now. He gives me a sense of hope that I often find hard to find in my own writing. So it's good to find some uplifting poems because this world really needs them.
I know. And I struggle with being, more positive also. It's like, what's wrong with me? I'm like always writing.
I think it's just easier, part of writing is a little therapeutic. And so you write into the dark spaces, right? And you get them out and then you're done and you move on in theory. Right.
Well, and then I was talking to, my previous guest and Ron Ricci, and I told him that I have a problem with being able to write political poems. And he's like, I call BS on that. You can. I said, I don't know. I said, I've tried. It doesn't come out right to me, I think. I leave it to folks who can really do that.
I struggle with it too. It's harder for me to write. But recently I just had a poem published by Glass Poetry Journal, which they are amazing. And it's a poem that weaves in Second Amendment, so gun rights, with abortion. I grew up in North Dakota, like I told you, and North Dakota has one abortion clinic. And North Dakota is a huge state. So if you need to drive across the state to get services, you're talking about an 8-hour drive, which is extremely, limiting for a lot of people to be able to get necessary services. And I'd been wanting to write a poem about it for years. And I finally figured out a way to do it. And it was talking about the, open expanse of land that I grew up on, and then sort of mirroring that with the land of the entire state and how that creates all these barriers for women. Right. And I was really excited about it because it's something I'd wanted to touch on for so long, and I didn't know how to approach it because it's a heavy topic and it's something that's not talked about, even though it should be, because it's simply a medical necessity and a medical procedure, a legal medical procedure, and it's fundamental women's rights. And so I was really happy when I finally found a way into the poem.
Let's just keep writing and keep focusing on creating new work.
Absolutely.
It may not save the world, but it hopefully can inspire at least one person, maybe, in my perspective. Well, you inspire me. I mean, your work, after reading it, I was like, someone gets me.
Thank you. That's such a wonderful compliment.
Yeah, so definitely keep in touch and, let me know what you're doing and where you're at in the world as far as your book tour and everything. Yes. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Perfect. Thank you so much for talking with me. This has been wonderful.
Well, everyone, that is it for now. Please tune in next week for my next featured guest. In the meantime, have a productive and creative week. Bye, Courtney.
Bye, Christina. It was lovely to talk to you.
You too.